what was the difference between, if we look at the prime ministers, Manmohan Singh and PV Narasimha Rao? PV Narasimha Rao said, we hear that he said that I cannot demean the office of Prime Minister of India. I cannot take in from Penjat, or I cannot allow somebody to come and tell me what Sonia Gandhi wants to say. I cannot go with a notebook and take dictation. So, what was the difference between, because Manmohan Singh was considered as a shadow prime minister, whereas Narasimha Rao had guts and he took decisions, bold decisions.
Well, there are two differences. First of all, Narasimha Rao was more of a politician than Dr. Manmohan Singh. Dr. Manmohan Singh was also a politician, and I can certainly say that he thought like a politician, he acted like a politician. But Narasimha Rao was a lifelong politician. Manmohan Singh became a politician only during his tenure as finance minister and leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha. But both were politicians, but neither expected to become prime minister, and both became prime minister. So in that sense, they did not seek the job, but the job came their way. But you asked me what is the similarity or the difference between the two styles. I have to quote my father here. My father knew both Prime Minister Narasimha Rao and Dr. Manmohan Singh very, very well for a long time. In fact, he was the returning officer as the collector of Karimnagar district when Narasimha Rao contested for the first time to become an MLA in 1957. So my father knew him from 1957, and he knew Manmohan Singh from around 1974 or 75, and Manmohan Singh was in the Ministry of Finance. And he said to me once, looking at the style of both the prime ministers, he said, look, both Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh were lifelong number twos. They had functioned as number two. They took instructions from the number one all through their life. Even when Narasimha Rao was chief minister, he was taking instructions from Indira Gandhi, who was then prime minister. But when Narasimha Rao became the prime minister, he finally made the transition from behaving and being a number two to becoming a number one. And he said that's the transition that Manmohan Singh did not fully make, that he remained very much in the way he functioned as a number two, with Sonia Gandhi being the number one. And that is what I've tried to capture in my book. But I think that was a fundamental difference, that once Narasimha Rao became prime minister, till then he was very much a number two. He always loyal to the leader. But once he became prime minister, he recognized that in India, the prime minister is number one. He is head of the country. He's not just head of the government. He's a sovereign representative of the country and functioned as such, and therefore was not willing to, always turn up at 10 Janpath and take instructions from Sonia Gandhi. While Manmohan Singh, did not make that transition fully, though even he, on many occasions, stood his ground, and I have said that, particularly in pursuing his foreign policy. But he did not make that full transition of asserting the authority of the Prime Minister's office. So I think that was the fundamental difference.